Hi everybody, this is Erika from Grapefruit and Gardenia Designs and the Knit Kind podcast. I am recording today where there might be some background noise, so I do have my microphone and I'm going to try to speak at a good level for you. If you have not watched the podcast before, this is a very informal vlog podcast called Knit Kind. We are akin to sitting around a table at your local yarn shop or your community center where you sit and knit and chat. Except I don't think I've ever been knitting during the podcast, but you might be, or crocheting or doing another fiber art, spinning, weaving, quilting. I am still on the island of Martha's Vineyard, and I have never felt humidity like this before. I have felt much worse heat. But I have been here now almost 2 weeks. It'll be 2 weeks on Monday. And the humidity hasn't broken once. Maybe one afternoon it cooled down. So I am not wearing any wool today. I actually don't even have wool on my lap today, although I do have, I might not show you any wool today, but I'm going to tell you about some. And I'm going to try really hard to record once a week here while I'm here. I know consistency is important, and because this is such an informal podcast and I don't want to talk to you when I don't have things to say or when I'm working really hard to finish something and I don't want to take time away to do a podcast, but I'm going to try to get into the routine of some continuity here, especially because I'm really getting back into designing full-time, what I would say. It is so inspirational over here, and I've been working on some projects that I'm really, really excited about. So we've got Bella Kitty here. She's my 15-year-old kitty who got to come with us since we were coming for so long this year. And we are sitting on a porch in Oak Bluffs, which we're in the gingerbread cottages if you've ever been here. And this is my favorite place to knit, design. You might even be able to see behind me, probably, maybe right there. I can't tell because of the way that the camera setup is, but my two favorite porches to sit on, knit on, design on. I'm on my parents' porch right now, which is screened in, and that's lovely, especially today because we're getting showers on and off. And the other one is the porch of a friend down the street where my family sometimes stays when more people come and we just need a little bit more space. I designed last year my nourishment cowl, sitting right here. I started it at home in greater Boston area over the winter, and then I brought it down here and creative juices flowed. That sounds kind of funny, but this is where I finished it. And my Aquina cowl, which had been a year prior, I designed in a porch back there. So the design I'm working on this year, I am over the moon about. It is inspired, if you live in the Northeast, whoops, bye bells. You live in the Northeast or probably even other parts of the country, but I know here it has been second to none with hydrangeas this year. So hydrangeas are the flower that I think actually might be from Portugal originally. They're not native here, and I do try really hard to, when I'm planting in the garden, plant native plants now. But these are just ones that, if you've been to the Cape and Islands of Massachusetts, hydrangeas are prolific, and they are always beautiful because there's a different climate here in the winter, so they do better than they do more inland. But this year, like inland, greater Boston, everybody's hydrangeas look amazing. And I had a yarn that spoke to me about representing them. I paired it with another yarn I wanted to knit a sweater with, and I am off to the races on that. I can't wait to show you, but I'm going to try to get through the yoke and see if I can get it graded and so on. What did I want to talk about today? Let's get going, Erika. So my design business is Grapefruit and Gardenia, as I said. You can find me on Ravelry as Nitty Elf 40, and you can find Erika Field's Ravelry store. I have probably 2 handfuls of designs out now. I have a few more coming out this fall, and then I'm really hoping to gain momentum and put a number of garments as well as accessories out in the next year. Like and subscribe. My son's not here. He's usually the one reminding me to say that. Not for my own benefit, but to help reach other knitters out there. There are so many knitting podcasts. They're great. Many of them are highly produced. Mine is not, but I hope that you still find the information in it both useful, interesting, and maybe something that sends you to another person's podcast or another set of designers' patterns to learn more. So today, on that note, this is really like, it's too hot to knit for a lot of people. So I thought what we might do is talk about some resources. In the last podcast that I did here, I showed you a little bit about my Rosalind vest design that I was working on. And I talked about how grading to be size inclusive is not as straightforward as people think. Sure, it's not hard. It's not impossible, although sometimes I suppose with certain designs it could be. But what I also talked about is how we expect a lot from designers, and designers in many, many cases are doing their best. In some areas, sure, some designers could improve their lens on size inclusivity and other definitions of inclusivity. As I mentioned, I'm sure in 5 years, some of what I'm saying is going to be very outdated, and I'm trying to think ahead so that I don't speak now like this is definitive, because in 5 years, it might be very much outdated. And so what I suggested in my last podcast vlog is that knitters meet designers part way and understand their own bodies and understand a little bit, not necessarily about design. I'm not talking about aesthetic choices. I'm not talking about color pairings. I'm not talking about necessarily pairing what fiber with what design, but I am talking about adjustments that you can make to customize what you are knitting to fit your body. And the reason for that is, and I actually have an example of what I'm going to show you, and I think this might be a really simple way of it hitting home. So we want designers to do their best with size inclusivity. No question about that. And although we're now looking at upper bust measurements, I don't want to say as much as full bust measurements, because full bust is still the probably most common way that you're looking at sizes, but upper bust is becoming more of a common measurement to look at. But my point is, as we've said, even as those bust sizes change, everything else does not necessarily change proportionally. And we want designers to have a pattern that works for everybody. And if we were all cookie cutters and we just sized up in a way that we could do that, sure. But some people have broader shoulders and a smaller bust. Some people have smaller shoulders and a bigger bust. It's not that because you have broad shoulders, you have a bigger bust. I've talked about this before, I have a very small neck. Much bigger upper arms. I wish it was all muscle, but it's not. And then proportionally, my upper bust to my bust size, if you're looking at something about like bust darts, or the difference there is not huge, which means a lot of times I can get away with knitting one of two sizes and they will both work for me. So I know a car has gone by. I can hear a chainsaw now. I'm hoping the volume of this is okay and that you'll bear with me, because I cannot be any place that I don't have some air going through right now. So what did I want to show you? This book, Knit, Wear, Love by Amy Herzog, is an example of why designers can't be everything to everyone at the same time. See this illustration? Shoulder slope. Now here, and I didn't have my glasses on because they're fogging up, but I need to put them on to read. So here it says, Francesca has square shoulders, which add structure to a sweater. Courtney has sloped shoulders, which may cause some sweaters to slide off. To compensate, she may want to choose styles with more structure. So Francesca is here in the dark tank top, and Courtney is here in the gray tank top. And so see just the shoulder slope there? This is on page 30 if anyone has the book. So here's two women who may or may not have the same bust size, upper bust size, torso length, but something as simple as shoulder slope. So you'll see people who will knit a cardigan and say, it's falling off my shoulders, the designer did a bad job. Well, maybe the designer could have improved the job that they did, but maybe not. Maybe it's your shoulder slope. I'm looking at mine right now, and mine looks pretty substantial. I think I've measured it at one point, not recently, but a really good activity to go through is to do a whole bunch of body measurements and have them so that you understand how to pair a pattern with it. And it's not just about size inclusivity. Does that make sense? It's about fit. Just like you can go into a store, you can take a garment off the rack, try it on, and it might fit, but does it fit the way that you want? Similarly, with knitting, we have more ability to customize and make it fit the way that we want, but it doesn't happen only because a designer is size inclusive. It happens because we understand how to make those changes, or we work with someone to do that. So today, it's too hot to knit. Try reading a little bit about knitting. I am going to go through a handful of books that I brought with me on vacation as ones that I might want to reference for people, whether I was teaching over here or trying to teach someone to knit, or showing someone about customizing one of their pieces, or designing. So I have a handful of both. This is only a small representation of what I have in my library at home. And I thought in a way it would be good to show you, and I'm not going to show you everything I brought with me. I'm going to leave a handful of them out, but I'm going to show you what I felt most compelled to bring with me on a 7-week trip away from home that I would want to reference either for myself or for someone else who I was trying to help. So we're going to start. I know I already showed you Knitwear Love, so that's a little preview, but we're going to start with Strange Brew. Strange Brew is it is the first book that I got when I wanted to learn to design. And part of the reason for that is I love color work and I love yoke sweaters. And this book, I said, well, they've got this formula for yoked sweaters. And I'm going to learn how to do that, and I'm going to customize. And so the first, I don't know if you'd call them original designs or not, probably textbook, you could call them, legally you could call them designs, but I used Strange Brew as a model. And so I did some custom sweaters to sell in a craft show, for a friend's daughter, where I did a yoke with flowers. And even within that, I had to make some tweaks. So if my yoke depth was a little bit longer than it would have been in Strange Brew, I had to decide how to do the split for the arms going top down in those cases. And my stitch counts were a little bit different. So it was the first taste I had that I could put together a design and color work, know kind of a basic recipe, and then tweak it to fit the needs of what I was designing. And some of them I loved right away, and some of them, they were okay. But it was clear it was not a design I would ever publish, even having not been a designer yet. It was more figuring out what worked well, what didn't work well, and doing that in kid sweaters is great because it's kind of a minimal investment or commitment. And also at the same time, it's beautiful to have, kids wear these sweaters that are completely unique that they could never have anywhere else. So Strange Brew, you can do top down, you can do bottom up, you can do a design that doesn't really matter. It matters how many repeats you have, but the alignment isn't a factor. And you can do a wedge design where the alignment is a factor. So if you like color work, that's a great place to start. If you don't like color work, maybe it's not the best place to start because it's a yoke sweater as opposed to raglan, set-in sleeve, drop shoulder, but it still will help you understand certain elements of design. And I can't remember what year this came out. It came out before I ever bought it. But in terms of size inclusivity, I'm going to talk a little bit about that here because I am going to mention at the end how you'll want to supplement resources that were produced at a time when size inclusivity did not go to the full grade of a bust it goes to now. And so, I was hoping to find really quickly. Okay, here we are. So the sizing table here. Now the other thing about this is it goes through 0 to 6 month children's sizes to 8 to 10. Women's sizes, what they considered extra small to 4XL, extra small being 32 inches, and that says finished chest. So I believe that is garment size, 32 inches, which if you're wearing it with 4 inches of positive ease would be a 28-inch bust. 4XL is, in these cases, about 58 to 59 inches. So now I do believe that they've gone back, Tin Can Knits, and added some sizes to the higher end of that. But in this book, I'm not sure if the book has been reissued. I know that they have a ebook, and it's possible it is in the ebook. But if you're looking for sizes beyond that, either hang tight and I'll give you a few resources at the end, or before you purchase it, you might want to see if that has increased, if that is something that you want or need. And then in the men's sizes, it goes from a small being a 37 inch approximately to a 4XL being approximately a 61 to 62 inch finished chest size. I've mentioned it a million times, but there's a reason. I love it. It's amazing. So I have 3 books by Amy Herzog. Before I get to those, I will mention another oldie but goodie, which is the Ann Budd book. Ann Budd top-down sweaters. So again, I know many people like top-down, many people like seamless, but not only seamless, because don't be afraid. Seams can be really, really good, and they're not that scary. Just say it. Leave it there for a minute. But in Ann Budd's book of top-down sweaters, and boy, if you can get it, the spiral bound, so good for knitters. So anyway, keep in mind also, most of these books I bought used. Check out Abe Books, Thrift Books. Sorry, we've got a loud phone. So in the Ann Budd book, very similarly to Tin Can Knits, you're going to have charts with sizes, which basically gives you recipes to follow. And you've got seamless yoke, raglan, set-in sleeve, saddle shoulder. They're all top down. This is smaller. This is going to go, I'm looking at the adult sizes, and I believe it only goes up to a 54 inch bust. Please keep in mind as you're looking at these that size inclusivity definitions have changed. I keep saying it, but I think it's really important that we don't dismiss resources, especially if they were inclusive at the time they were published. Anyway, I think we all know what we're talking about there. There's a lot of conversation. So yes, it says general sweater measurements, child sizes 26 inch to 34 inch, or 66 to 86.5 centimeters. Women's sizes 36 to 44 inch, or 91.5 to 112 centimeters, and men's sizes 46 inch to 54 inch, or 117 to 137 centimeters. All of these books so far, they also give you patterns. So these are great if you are looking to level up your knitting, your garment knitting, as an individual who knits for yourself and or other people. And they're also a great place to start if you think you might be interested in designing, but you're not sure and you want a little background, maybe before you jump right into a class, which can be expensive and can be really worth it. But you know, it's like I've said before, when I was learning to knit, I didn't go straight to the local yarn shop and buy the $30 skeins of yarn and a interchangeable set of Chowgu needles or Addi needles. I went to my big box craft store and I got some acrylic and some wool acrylic blends and some Suzanne Bates needles, and I decided if I liked it first, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. So these are great places if you say, I want to learn to design, but I am not ready to invest $700 or $1,200 in a grading class. These are great places to start. So I hope it's helpful with some resources. Okay, so we've got those two. Now, I told you I had 3 books by Amy Herzog. They are Knitwear Love, Knit to Flatter, and The Ultimate Sweater Book. They also show you different styles, and similarly, I don't know that I need to give you every range here of sizes, but similarly, I think this is the most recent one. And I was just looking if it really quickly had the size chart that it goes up to. But listen, here's where I'll jump in with the additional resources. A lot of the principles in these are the same, but at those largest sizes that we are now grading to, there are nuances that don't fit some of the exact models. So what I have here, just to remind myself to show you, first of all, the Ysolda, Ysolda. I don't have anything from her here, but that's one great place to start. Another place, McBrien Evans. I'm not going to hold it up because I can't remember if this was a purchased chart or not, but she has a chart here that includes cup sizes. So particularly if you are designing for or knitting for a body with a bust, the cup size is here. And anyway, she is very well known for size inclusivity, and I believe is Canadian. Yes, Canadian. She is, this is by Digits and Threads. And she's also Indigo Dragonfly. So that's McBrien Evans. Jill Wolcott also. Again, I think some of these are purchased. They're pretty, I mean, not pretty. They are very reasonably priced. There are size charts that you can buy that are a few $100s. Some of these size charts are like $5. And the other thing about it is, wouldn't it be great if we could all just go somewhere and buy the same size chart and we felt like it worked? Oh, it would be so good. We're either not there yet, or it's just that there are truly so many nuances that I don't know what there is. And that's part of like craft council standards and other things over the years that some things we might just evolve to say, you know what, maybe there was a time and a place that was okay, that we felt like that's how arms were proportional to bodies, but they're not anymore. Or as I've mentioned before, it may be different parts of the world that proportions are just different, right? Ethnicities, gender, different things, like they all play into it, and we learn as we go. And so, yes, somehow they make ready to wear clothes and we all manage to get in something. But when we're customizing it and we're knitting ourselves, we have these expectations that we're going to do much better. So McBrien Evans, Ysolda, Jill Wolcott. She has this, see all these? These are all pages of Jill Wolcott size charts. And I'm going to also mention Brooklyn Tweed, because size inclusivity is extremely important to Brooklyn Tweed, and I've been working with some of their yarns. So you're going to find, this one you can print, I believe, free. It's in a lot of their patterns, and not only that, but it is on the front page of Ravelry of a lot of their patterns. So you don't have to buy the pattern in order to get it printed out. You can actually print it out right from Ravelry and decide if it is a pattern that you want to knit, and you can also reference it if you're doing your own designs. So those are a few. And then I've mentioned this before, but the Knitting Pattern Writing Handbook by Christina McGrath and Sarah Walworth. This is a book that if you are an aspiring designer, for a mere $20 US or $26 Canadian, you can get this. You can get it from a lot of local yarn shops. You can get it on Amazon, probably bookstores, and probably your local library if you want to check it out. That's the other thing with the other books, local library. I mean, look, they have so many of them. So buy them used, get them from your library. A lot of times you can even get them new for a very good price. And those are all excellent resources. This is where I'm sort of crossing over between all the first ones I mentioned are just as applicable if you are trying to empower yourself to level up as an individual knitter. Now we're crossing over into designer territory. So now what I'm going to do is just mention a few other books, and these books are ones that, as I did my journey of grading my first garment, I found useful. I didn't find every page of every book useful, nor did I read every page of every book. But when I was in a predicament and I was trying to understand something better, parts of these books helped me. And they are books that I wish first of all, I wish there was just a master list somewhere. And second of all, I wish that we could update some of them. And I wish that we could keep them in print, because I think when you find these older resources that are gems, it is sometimes hard to get a copy. I've paid, now, the other more modern books, when I buy them used, I've paid a lot less than the new price. But guess what? Books like this is called The Knitter's Guide to Sweater Design by Carmen Michelson and Mary Ann Davis. I paid I didn't pay way more, but many people are paying way more. I somehow got lucky. This was an Interweave Press publication. I don't know if it has the year here, but it does have an original sticker price on it of $29.95. And I can tell you I paid more than that for it. But I have seen them for as much as like $150. So see this book, The Knitter's Guide to Sweater Design. If you want to design, put this somewhere on a watch list on some of the used book websites. Get it out of your local library if you can, and make notes or copy a limited number of pages that you're sort of allowed to copy for resource purposes. Because there are parts of this book that, again, you might not use them exactly to design, but referencing them and reading them over and over and over is going to help you. I am going to hold up one page here with taking measurements, measurement definitions, potential fitting problems. It's a gold mine. It really is. And I have so many pages in here marked. And I can tell you that when I was designing my vest and I would go back and forth, there were things I had worked out in my head, but a year later, I'd put it down and picked it up so many times, I ended up teaching myself all over again. So it was very worth having this on my bookshelf. There are all kinds of stepped examples of how to write something, how to draft something. I'm looking at the pages I have marked. You know, there are things about increases and decreases. Of course, you can find those in other books. But this book, we'll just say get it. Get it if you can. Apparently, you can also resell it if you don't like it for a lot more money. So that's helpful. These are super simple little books. Cast on, bind off, increase, decrease. I have found in my designs that one of the things I get a ton of joy out of, not maybe finding the right increases and decreases. Sometimes that gives me more pain than joy. But I do love remembering that there are options and that not everything has to be done the same way. And that a lot of times you can solve for an issue just by changing the way that you do something, a technique, not necessarily changing where you're doing it, but just how you're doing it. And the bind-offs and the cast-ons, bind-offs in particular, I would say I just, for my shearing day shawl, discovered a new bind-off, new to me. I mean, believe me, I definitely did not create it, but it's so cool. And when I record a podcast just about those designs, I will show you. It looks almost like an I-cord bind-off, but it's way faster and easier. And if you're doing it in a single color, it creates an awesome edge for a shawl. So I'll show you that one. So resources for designers, or again, for knitters. You might look at a sweater and you might say, oh, I'd love to knit that sweater, but I really do not like the neckline, or I really don't like the cuffs or the bottom. Please knit the sweater. You're going to do the neckline? Do a provisional cast on. Decide later. Knit the sweater if it's top down. Do a provisional cast on, knit the sweater, and then go back and find a neckline you like. Don't not knit a sweater because you don't like the neckline or the sleeves or the bind off. There's a million things you can figure out. And so I want to keep this to about a half an hour, so I'm going to wrap it up. The sweater design in plain English, as my friend and tech editor has said to me, doesn't always feel like plain English, but it is a great resource, and one that is small and easy enough to bring with me on vacation, as opposed to much bigger books about techniques where I think they're much wordier. This one, when you are looking something up, is fairly concise. It's not, I wouldn't exactly call it a beginner book. But if you are curious and you are detailed, it could be a beginner book for you. So those are the books that I brought with me, in addition to, of course, my Barbara Walker stitch dictionaries, because I have a bunch of stitch dictionaries beyond that, but the Barbara Walker ones are the primary ones that over and over again I go to, I look at. Partially, they're not all in black and white, but many of them are. And I love, again, I've said I don't know who Lois Zinn is, but thanks to her and her book, I've kept all of her handwritten notes that were in here. And I just love looking through these. And I often do a little bit of an adaptation. I don't do exactly the same. Well, sometimes I do, of course. But other times I'll change spacing between things, or I'll do a color change a little bit sooner or later. And they're just fantastic. So I hope that was interesting. I hope that it brought your brain from knitting to designing. And we have so many aspiring designers out there, as well as knitters who are just looking to be more empowered and to find resources. And sometimes you really don't know where to start. And sitting at your local yarn store table, your knit group, your knit night, I mean, these are where we learn things. And so if you don't have the ability to do that, or you don't have one near you, not only don't have the ability, but you don't have access to one, I hope that I could be here for you and give you some of that chit chat that can be really helpful. Just be that friend sitting across from you at the yarn shop or at the community center. And as I always like to say, knit kindly, live kindly, and until next time, thank you.